and welcome to Face to Face. My name is Dave Thompson, and as you know, America has started its response both internally and externally. Today we're going to ask the question, who in America can you trust?
Well, Dave, I trust the Constitution, but we're going to have a difficult discussion today about Islam, about nationalities, and about our Constitution. That's what we'll be talking about here on Face to Face. America Responds. Who do you trust?
Production of Face to Face is brought to you by TCF Bank, your hometown bank with convenient full-service banking offices and express teller ATMs located throughout the Twin Cities and all of Minnesota. TCF Bank, member FDIC. The Target Corporation family of companies, including Dayton's, Mervyn's, California, and Target, is proud to give over $1 million a week back to the community. And the education of a lifetime begins fall 2001. To learn more about Providence Academy, please visit our website at www.providenceacademy.org.
Welcome back to Face to Face. I'm Vance Opperman, co-host. America Responds. Who do we trust? America has started to fight back and answer with attacks, but who do we attack? And how do we know when we've won? This is a very difficult question. I bet every single person has asked themselves that question, and the question about loyalty oaths, the question about national ID cards. Do we rip up our Constitution? Do we decide to treat Americans and people among us differently than we've treated them in the past? Do we go back to the situation we had with the internment camps of World War II? All of those are topics that come up when you discuss fear, terror, who do you trust, and how do you work through these issues as Americans? Today we're going to be, two people joined us to help us with that question. Sitting on my immediate left, Ahmed Tharwat, who's host of the BeLAhdan Arab American Voice TV program. Colonel Patrick Gromek, former Strategic Intelligence Officer, U.S. Army, retired. Welcome, gentlemen. Welcome. Dave?
Ahmed, I've got a question for you. One of the things that's been disturbing to me since this event took place on September 11th is it seems to me that we're not hearing a resounding, unqualified condemnation of the terrorist activities from the Muslim community, and that's very troublesome. How do you respond to that?
Well, I don't want to take the credit for speaking for the Muslim community, but in general, the Muslim Americans and Arab American in particular, they coming from a background that not traditionally known for a democratic process. They're not really, step up to the plate and express their feeling. And after that September 11 horrendous attack, I think there was a sense of shock and intimidation, and a lot of them are very apprehended. They do not know what to expect. They're afraid, the Muslims, American leadership, they try in so many ways to really express their outrage and shock of all this. But I think a lot of people are kind of question the loyalty and question their the fact, as I see it. I think after September 11, a lot of Arab American, a lot of Muslim American found out how American they are, but still the guilty by association, and people question the loyalty and question their their feeling. It's really it's kind of put a dam on the response.
But here's the problem that I have. If you ask me about the terrorist attack, whether it's today or if you'd have asked me 3 hours after it happened on September 11th, I'd give you an unqualified condemnation. When I hear Arab Americans speak, when I hear Muslims speak, I constantly hear, well, we condemn the activities, but. I don't want to hear a but anymore. I don't want to hear rationalization for this, and I hear a lot of that from the Muslim community, both abroad and here in America, and to me it's disturbing.
You know, Dave, if I can interrupt, the Detroit area has the largest concentration of Muslim Americans in the United States, and Congressman Conyers, that represents that area, went on television very quickly within a week to say that the FBI in his area, in that part of his district outside Detroit, had told him that thousands of Muslim Americans had come forward to help in interpreting documents, to help in the intelligence gathering. There's been an outpouring of that kind of support. Now, that may not be something that has made headlines in the paper, but I don't think you have to look very far to see Americans responding regardless of religious background.
Well, I think that's true, and certainly nobody is trying to say that all Arab Americans are taking that position,
Sure.
but it seems like many of the leaders, the clerics aren't giving the unconditional condemnation, and people who speak on the issue seem to always want to revert back to this, well, we also need to think about why this is happening, and the underlying thought seems to be America's done something to bring this on themselves, and I don't frankly appreciate that.
I'm not sure about that. I think most of the Arab leader and Muslim leader that I've seen him, even locally, we see Dr. Hamdi Sawaf. He was the governor, was the coalition. I've been on all kind of media, local and nationally, condemning the horrendous attack. And I think even when the media pick up and try to they pick up on the sexy story, and they kind of not really covering the majority of the Arab American, Muslim American, that they are as shocked and threatened and afraid of that September 11 attack like anybody else. The thing is, distribution and dissemination of information also is not something the Arab American did a very good job, or a Muslim American in it. I mean, we do not know how to deal with the media. We do not know how to communicate our messages. But I think the Arab American, Muslim American are shocked and appalled by this event like anybody else.
Colonel, let me ask you. Let me try a fast question first to open up a slightly different part of this topic. You're waiting in Northwest Airlines area to get on a flight that goes to Salt Lake City or Denver, and you notice as you about to get on the airplane that there are three Eastern-looking gentlemen in their late 20s, early 30s. Perhaps they look a little nervous to you. Do you get on the airplane or not?
Well, I'd look nervous too, but I'd probably get on the airplane.
What about those who didn't? Think that's a proper response?
Well, everybody has to judge for themselves. I think air travel is still very safe. I think it's probably safer now than it was before the attacks. But back to the question that Dave raised, and I like the answer Ahmed gave. The country's still in trauma. It's been over a month since we've had September 11th, and there's been silence everywhere. The UN has yet to uncharacteristically come online. There's been no resolution. I mean, I assumed they would condemn Israel for the attack right now. In fact, nobody took credit for the attack. This well-coordinated attack was left suspiciously and quietly quiet.
Well, I'm not. I'm not sure that we have to wait for certain groups to come forward and
well, we don't
take credit.
But it's uncharacteristic in both cases.
Well,
the silence of the UN and the people who somebody out there is taking great pride in this attack, and we haven't heard from them.
Well, what would you do? I mean, do you think that we ought to look differently at Americans that look different?
No. American citizens, and you brought it up earlier, the internment camp of the Japanese.
Huh?
I don't think, Vance, that applies because the Japanese were American citizens. Those 19 Muslim mass murderers were not American citizens. They were here at the pleasure of the government. We can get somebody like Eliam Gonzalez, a little innocent Cuban boy, and deport him quickly, visibly, and yet we have 19 unregistered Americans, not American citizens. So I think we're, in a way...
Millions of undocumented immigrants.
Well, we have 11 million undocumented immigrants in this country. We've got a big problem. And the problem is on our shores. You're right, there are cells of people we haven't even found out yet. This whole thing was a huge intelligence failure, no doubt about it. And it shook us to the core, and this will be probably the worst day to be an American that I can remember.
Well, I think a lot of people have their own working through some of these issues. I thought the airline incident was one kind of underscoring of the difference that Americans may feel. There's been discussion about, in the intelligence community, about having some form of national ID card. You think that's a good idea?
No, I don't think it's a good idea at all. I think we need to...
I agree with you.
Well, of course you do, Vance, because we're on the same right-wing political spectrum.
No, we're both Americans. That's probably why.
Yeah, we're both Americans.
And support the Constitution.
And so is Ahmed.
And support the Constitution.
If I may inject,
go ahead.
I mean, the Gallup poll is saying that's almost more than 60% agree on the given the special card to Arab Americans, and it's an amazing how an American will become when we have in the moment when everybody should not forget what makes this country so great.
Yeah.
All right, when we come back, Ahmed, I want to ask you about how you perceive the difference between American citizens and those who are maybe in this country and don't have citizenship. We'll be right back on Face to Face.
My name, it is nothing. my age it means less. The country I come from is a part of the free West. I was taught and brought up there, its laws to abide, and that the land that I live in has God on its side.
Welcome back to Face to Face. I'm Dave Thompson, and Ahmed, I wanted to ask you a question. It seems to me that we're blurring the distinction between citizens and non-citizens in the dialogue that's taken place after September 11th. And I think we need to apply a very different standard to people who have come to this country and have become citizens as opposed to those who are here on visa or under whatever arrangement that they're here. Would you agree with that, whether it impacts Arabs, Muslims, or any other group?
Well, we have the law. If we enforce the existing law, we shouldn't have this problem. There is nothing wrong with our Constitution. The problem with some bureaucratic and enforcing the laws. So I have no problem with if somebody's breaking the law, you enforce the law at fullest, and this is what America is all about. It's a country of laws.
Well, I don't think anybody would dispute the fact that the INS lately has had some abysmal failures, and had they been doing their job, most likely this attack would not have taken place.
Well, various news broadcasts have suggested that there are upwards of 700,000 people at any one time in this country who came in on visas that have expired. And it's well known that there's not much effort to enforce those kind of visas, those kind of restrictions. I don't think it's hard to say we ought to at least enforce the laws we have, and I bet 99.9% of Americans, perhaps not those here, those visas have expired, but everyone else would probably agree with that. But Colonel, let me ask you a question. One of the difficulties with enforcing the student visa issue is that it's been reported that a lot of state colleges and universities have refused requests to open up their roster of students to be compared against a list of those whose visas have either expired or perhaps those who have never attended even though they got a student visa. What would you do about that?
Refuse them federal funding.
What if they're private colleges?
Refuse them federal funding. There's only 2 colleges that don't get federal funding that I'm aware of in the United States. One being Hillsdale.
Well, couldn't you go further than that? Couldn't you require that they turn that over?
Yes, you could go further.
Why not?
There's no argument against that.
What about driver's licenses?
Well, this has nothing to do with a visa. Anybody can get a driver's license.
Well, why don't we require that to get a driver's license you have to have show a valid visa?
We could do that.
Okay.
We could do that.
Well, Vance, I think there's going to have to be a whole new outlook on civil liberties. I think we're simply going to have to face the fact that if we get extreme in the area of protecting those people who are on our shores, regardless of whether or not they're here legally, we are asking for more of these events to take place, and I think we're going to have to reevaluate how we look at civil liberties in this country. And I am a civil libertarian.
How would you do that? What would you reevaluate of our civil liberties?
Well, I think primarily, we have to look at how aggressively we can go find the people that are here illegally and what measures we can take to get to them, to get through university bureaucracy, to get through employers that employ large numbers of illegal immigrants, and break down the barriers that are protecting the people that are here on our shores threatening us.
But wouldn't that be like we're playing in the terrorist, corner now? That's exactly what they want. They want to turn this country to a country of, compromising in civil liberty. Civil liberty has been working wonderfully all these years through the American history. This is, when you're talking about there is, 11 million undocumented, and here is an incident that, of course, as appalling as it is and as horrendous as it is, when you put in a proportion, civil liberty, if you start compromising civil liberty, for the safety, we are losing the battle against terrorism.
But let me ask you this: are you an American citizen?
I am.
All right. If we put a law in place that says you, as a university, have to turn over a list of people that are here on visas so we can compare and find out if these people are here legally, and if they are here illegally, deport them.
Or if they ever showed up as a student.
Yeah. How does that threaten you?
My wife teaches in the University of Minnesota. She teaches English as a second language. All her students are coming with visas. And matter of fact, there was just a sweeping laws that says for 6 months there will not be any new students. Now the whole Department of English as a second language is just stand still and turmoil. If you're going to assume everybody coming with a visa, or somebody his visa expired because he didn't apply. He's a terrorist. Now really we're getting in a messy area.
Why? Why? How does that endanger you to make sure the people who are here illegally are sent back? Because we now know they pose a potential threat.
Most of the people who their visa expired or they're on our visa, it's because of probably they forgot to renew it, or it is very minute twisted-minded group here, some idiots somewhere, that they're going to tell us how we live our life in this country. We should not go after the majority where we know there are only very few twisted-minded people. We go after them like we go after drug addict or criminals
or murderers or
anybody else.
Let me try this a different way, Colonel. Part of the problem I don't think is just, and I didn't mean just to concentrate on visas.
How about airplane license?
We granted, sure, but we granted 4.5 million visas around the world last year. Is that too many? Should we control?
I don't have a number to control.
Should we control who comes in and out of the country?
Absolutely.
Okay, how do you do that?
We're not a country if we can't control your borders.
How do you do that?
Well, there's a number of ways. The INS, obviously, in the last few years haven't done a very good job.
But it's not difficult to get a student visa in our embassies overseas.
At present, it isn't.
Well, so how would you tighten that up?
Well, you first have a law that they have to present these people who they've expired. But I'm with Ahmed on this one.
No, I'm talking about the people that get visas in our embassies before they come to the United States. How do you control that process?
Do a security screening.
And that requires a national database?
Absolutely.
Okay. And that would include CIA and FBI material?
Well, the FBI is domestic. The CIA would probably be more concerned with people coming in because they're international. It's difficult. The numbers are high. I'm not sure what the answer is, but we're not doing the job.
Let me shift this to one other problem, which is very close to Minnesota. We have a border with Canada that in most cases at night is guarded by a orange plastic cone.
That cone does a good job too.
Yeah, it does, and we ought to have more of them. But
better job than some.
Do you think it's a good idea or a bad idea, or how would you make it better for us to deal with Canada so that all of North America, not just our borders, but the borders surrounding Canada and the United States, have better restrictions?
We're a sieve. Anybody can get in here. The people we're not documenting, the people we have, we've lost control of. There are so many people without green cards working. It surprised me when I look into the issue. If I'd deport anybody who ever worked for the INS, I'd deport these people. They haven't done their job.
Well, the point that I'm trying to make is that we can do everything you and I have talked about and fail. We could all do it and succeed, but in neither case would affect our civil liberties.
It's not going to be a perfect system, and
sure.
They exist. And when you look as a politician, when the economy, look at the southern states. I mean, the whole industry is relying on undocumented immigrants.
One of the unfortunate things that has happened as a result of much of the advocacy by so-called civil libertarian groups is we have blurred the distinction between rights and privileges. And you, as an American citizen, and all three of us as American citizens have certain constitutional rights that attach. Nobody has a right to come from overseas and become an American.
Yeah, but the problem with that, David, is that if you start having a dichotomy between those people that have rights and those people that don't, and because you can't tell who they are in the general population, you start picking people out. That's the reason the Supreme Court has held that most rights apply to all people in the United States, not just citizens.
Well, we need to get over that unless we're willing to see a repeat of September 11th.
Well, I don't think we will see a repeat of September 11th as a result of upholding the Constitution. I think we'll see a repeat because we haven't done the things that free people ought to do to protect themselves. And on this one, I get the last word. And come on back and join us when we do Face Off. We have 3 interesting issues. Come on back to Face to Face.